Good evening. As you find your seats, you might want to get up again and get an index card if you have any questions for either group of candidates tonight. I'm Cindy O'Brien, and I'd like to thank you on behalf of the League of Women Voters for coming here tonight to listen to some candidates that are going to be on our ballot in November. We'll have two sessions tonight. We're going to begin with two candidates here for County Commission. I do need to mention that the League of Women Voters opens the forum for candidates of all parties. Unfortunately, not all candidates could come tonight, but they were all invited for the County Commission and for the other one. Yes, okay. So we're going to begin tonight with an introduction by the two candidates for County Commission, and we're going to ask that they spend 3 minutes introducing themselves, giving us an idea of what their main goals are, and then after their introductions, we will ask questions that have been submitted online and tonight. So if you have any questions, be sure to pass them up to me. And the limits, okay, actually, Kitty in the turquoise sweater there can collect them if you want to hold them up in the air. Our timekeeper, Nancy Treat, will give us an idea as to whether you've reached your time limit. Okay? So let's begin with the candidate, Bill Bartolo. Oh, you'll need that.
I've asked if I could go ahead and stay seated, and the reason I'll share with you is because I just recently went through a hip replacement surgery, and unfortunately fell into the 1% group and got an infection. So I went through a second surgery, and I'm in the process now of trying to recover from that, and I have some difficulty getting up and down. But it's not permanent. As someone said, now you need to make sure and remind people we didn't have a brain transplant. So I'm still the same Bill. I'm your current county commissioner. I'm a Democrat. I'm currently serving as president of the county commission. That's my second term as president of the county commission. And I would like to say that I'm proud to be a member of this commission. This commission is committed and dedicated to providing services that the public needs and wants. If you attend some of our meetings and you listen to the discussion that goes on, you'll find out that we're our own worst devil's advocates. We challenge each other. We ask for what the benefit's going to be to the public, what the cost is going to be, and is it worth it? One of the things that I think we're all proud of Monongalia County. You know, we have some people in the southern part of the state that aren't as fond of us as we are of ourselves. But we're the third largest county in West Virginia. We're the fastest growing county in West Virginia. We just received the Thelma J. Stone Award for the best county operations in the state of West Virginia. We have a commission that's alert, that's involved, on the go, and I would hope to be able to stay on this commission another 6 years to see some important projects through. You know, we've got a new Justice Center, which is a significant investment that I'd like to see that through. We've got the collaboration that we started, we've been in it almost a year with WVU and municipalities and the new baseball park, which I do want to make sure that you understand that when we approved that, we didn't approve just a baseball park. We approved what comes with it, and that was $280 million, promise of $280 million of development on the west side of 79. So we have some things going on. We're a county on the move. We're a county that's starting to worry, I think, very actively about quality of life, as well as economic development. And I would appreciate your consideration to remain in my position on the county commission.
Thank you. For those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Dr. Ed Hawkins, and I'm running for the position of the Monongalia County Commission. My family's been in West Virginia for nearly 200 years now. Next year will mark the anniversary, the 100th anniversary of the establishment of Hawkins Dairy. I grew up on that dairy farm, and there I learned responsibility, and I also learned how to work hard. At age 8, I was introduced to 4-H, and there I gained leadership skills and the desire to make the best better. With mentors like Joe Gluck and Stacy Grosscup and Billy Coffendaver, as well as my father and grandfather, I was made aware that public service was a way that allowed you to give back to your community. I've recently retired from 40 years of an active dental practice, and I intend to devote the time that the position of a county commissioner actually demands. I will have established office hours to allow the public to either call me or to make an appointment to come in and speak. Being involved with 4-H, the fair, the Historical Society, Chamber of Commerce, as well as this league, proves my involvement and I think my commitment to selfless hard work and ethics in our county. I truly believe that recreation and historical preservation are a positive and cultural civic investment. We can make Monongalia County an even better place to live by creating a solid plan to preserve our heritage, our farms, and our green space, but not at the expense of the vibrant economy that we now really have. By my community involvement, I think I've proven that I'm willing to be present, and I want to listen to what you have to say. Yes, we must commit ourselves to working together with cohesive leadership. And yes, we need better roads, and trust me, I'm just as frustrated with the traffic in the morning and in the evening as all of you are. And hell yes, we need better infrastructure. I mean, really. In my years on the farm, I've watched teams of horses work plowing a field. We in the farming community believe that we pull the most when we all pull together, and that's what I ask for. I ask for your vote for me and for leadership in the fall. Thank you.
We'll begin our questions tonight. Each year, the league locally and statewide chooses a study question. And our question this year, our issue this year was about the library system. So we'd like to ask you about the Morgantown Public Library System. In addition to the downtown library and the All Center, has 5 branches outside the city limits. For the past 2 years, the County Commission has reduced its allocation to these libraries. This allocation is 25th in the state, although Mon County usually ranks as the 2nd or 3rd richest county in the state. Please answer, are you in favor of restoring or increasing the county's allocation to the public library system?
Did you say the last 5 years?
Last 2 years. Past 2 years, the County Commission has reduced its allocation.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we got that correct, because the last 2 years we've also reduced other areas' budgets. One of the things that we have done is we've looked at with a more careful eye at how taxpayer dollars were being spent. One of the things I think the county has given the Morgantown Library about $350,000 a year, if I'm not mistaken, or close to that, or it used to be that.
The allocation at this point, as the questioner said, is the allocation is $300,000 now, down
Okay.
from $315,000.
And I think they're helping to fund some satellite places like Arnottsville, the community center out there. They've got involved with the community center out there. We have went on site at Arnottsville, and we've discussed their needs. One of the things that this county commission will do is when we look at budget submissions, whether it be the library, whether it be In Touch and Concerned, whether it be the volunteer fire departments, we look at needs, not just once, because when you deal with taxpayers' money, if we gave everybody what they wanted, we'd have to raise the levy rate on property and probably come up with some new taxes. So we have to be prudent when we allot that. But as a safeguard, what we have done and what we do is that if you have a need, for example, Arnottsville Community Center, and you approach us and justify that need, then we will look at additional funding to meet your needs.
another part of that question, since you brought it up, and I'm going to give you time to answer this, but would you, a stated reason for the cut is the fact that coal severance tax monies are used to fund the library. Since this source is dwindling, would you favor using property taxes to fund this vital service, since you mentioned that? Can you answer that?
Well, you are absolutely right. Coal severance tax has reduced $500,000, which is far more than $50,000. Anytime you talk about using property taxes for funding, I think you have to look at the necessity of services. Because if you're a taxpayer out there, we sometimes tend to generalize, and the other commissioners could tell you when we had this little episode with this unreasonable increase in property evaluations, we had some people come in that you talk about $50,000, they were talking about $20 a year. They couldn't buy their medication. We were talking about a neighborhood like Crown, 47 families whose kids would go out and walk in raw sewage going out onto the ground. Those are kind of competing priorities that the commission has to deal with. But we're open, and we will reconsider because sometimes people will approach us and they don't tell us the full story the first time. They'll tell someone else, and one of the commissioners will say, well, they need to get back in here and let us know that, and they'll come back in. So you don't have an unreasonable commission, but you do have a commission that's prudent with taxpayer dollars.
So the issue of library funding and taxes.
I have to preface my remarks, first of all, to make most of you understand that my first degree is in English literature. So I'm prejudiced toward this cause. I'm prejudiced because I consider it a quality of life. I was given the opportunity to get my first library card at the Morgantown Library, and I still remember going. That was when it was beside that little hole in the wall there on the right-hand side where you went in, and there were a few rows of books, and I still remember checking out and reading every science fiction book that was there. So I believe attending the meeting that I attended of your own league with a comparable we used the comparable of Cabell County that has a major university in it, and we had everything almost right down to identical population, and yet the amount of money that was put in by the commission was, I believe, over $1 million. And so it was almost double the amount. To be 25th in the state on anything, I mean, our state unfortunately does rank very low in a lot of things nationally. But to be 25th in the state on anything, particularly when it pertains to education, is really, I think, unacceptable. And so, yes, I think we need to bulk this up. Yes, you have to look at the budget. I understand budgets. I've worked on many commissions, and I've been a businessman for 40 years. I know what I can afford. I know what I can't afford. I know where the money has to be spent, and I know what needs are. So if it comes down to a fact that you would have to adjust it over to property taxes, in other words, that doesn't mean you're raising the taxes, but you're just adjusting over to where the money comes from, so that it is a constant and dependent source, not something that you're saying, okay. And there's also a possibility of a levy, because obviously there are other groups, and you mentioned the firemen's. They've been receiving $20,000 per group for each volunteer fire department for the past 6 years, I believe, at least 5. Do they have need? Yeah, they do, and that's your protection. Most of the volunteer fire departments, with the exception of the Morgantown department, provide all the protection that we have. So, there's other groups perhaps that might also want to look at a levy. Recreation might be one as well. In other words, voters can decide.
How do you, President Gee says he wants WVU to add 7,000 more students and have a university of 40,000. Is the county able to absorb the growth? How do you plan to improve the infrastructure in the city and county with the WVU expansion? I'm going to You take this one.
Most of you should know that really you can collaborate. And that's probably the key element. You've got to be able to work with WVU. They're not going to go away, and they're certainly the integral reason that we're here and we're not Moundsville. If you don't know the story, Moundsville was given the choice between having the prison or WVU back when the WVU was established. They chose the prison. So we've been blessed. We've also been cursed because now that we have grown to such a great, and it's almost purging on the infrastructure, you've got to be able to work with the individuals that are in power to try and bring things back to this county. Now, one is sitting here, Senator Beach is on the Transportation Committee. He's the head of it, I believe. So these are individuals that we have to say, hey, what can we do as a county to work with you? What can we do, President Gee, to work with you to see that we can provide the best and still not depreciate the quality of life that everybody else here is having? Again, I'm still just as fed up with the traffic as everybody else. I see it. I know it was adjusted, one way to, I travel the same path, by the way, that you recently adjusted. Now the traffic backs up, unfortunately, going down to Hartman Run Road because they're waiting there to get in. So there's a wait no matter what. We've got a long way to go, and it's going to take a lot of work to get there.
I think first of all you have to understand that the powers of the county commission, one commissioner has no power. I don't care who it is. That all decisions of the county commission are made in the formal structure of our meetings and must be on the agenda. So if any one person promises you something, being one commissioner, it's full of holes and it's not going to even hold water. Second of all, I've met at least twice with President Gee. I know some of the other commissioners have met with President Gee. I can tell you that Commissioner Callan has made numerous trips, has been in the governor's office, has been in the Department of Highways office, has been in the State Tax Department office. Collaboration started in this county a year ago. Unfortunately, some people don't know that. We can only do so many things. We tried to start a road patching fund, and I think there was someone that made a statement of, I don't patch roads, I pave them. I don't know where they're going to get money to pave roads. Department of Highway, first of all, has to give you permission, and second of all, they aren't going to do it. We tried to work with the Department of Highways, but what you find out is that's their bailiwick. Now, should we look to the future and ways to improve our infrastructure? Absolutely. Absolutely. We need to do that. We need to work with the state. We have an issue that's coming up that we are going to have to aggressively work with the state to get some cooperative partnerships. But I can tell you President Gee wants as much as anyone in this county to work with the county in partnerships and developing a relationship that benefits not only the university, but the community.
Along the same lines, another questioner asks, with the proliferation of apartment and townhouse complexes in the metro area, including along Morgantown boundaries, will you endorse countywide planning and subdivision regulations to manage this growth? Please explain your answer.
Well, we are in the process of subdivision regulations. We've asked the Planning Commission to develop those. They've submitted them, and I think we're in review status at this point. So, yes, we need regulations. We have uncontrolled growth. I can tell you that the Commission has received calls from outlying areas that never would have ever endorsed planning, but now are asking, can we get some planning? But it's easier said than done. We had a couple elections. West Warren is the only area that passed county planning. I think, I don't want to speak for the other two commissioners, but I think we have reached a point with the growth that's going on in our area and the contamination that's taken place with water runoff and sewage backup, and a fire truck can't get in and turn around in a housing development, or school bus can't get in to pick up school kids. We have reached a point where we need some planning and some requirements for development.
I would honestly say that we reached that point well over 8-9 years ago. I served on the Planning Commission for, I believe, 4.5 years. I actually resigned right after Chris Alardi resigned because the commission would not accept the simple subdivision regulations that we had presented forward, and that was 5.5 years ago. So to say that I support it, yes, I served on that commission. I felt that our efforts were genuine in putting forth these subdivision regulations, and still, here they sit. They have not been accepted, and it's 5 years later.
Another about development. As Morgantown grows, congestion is increasing and green space is shrinking. Since we have been known for our quality of life and the natural beauty of the region, what measures could be taken at the county level to protect and or create green space?
The one initiative, of course, is what you term farmland preservation. It is not actually farmland preservation. Most of you should understand. It's aimed at preserving what may be unique in the community that has space to it. It may be architectural. It can be defined as archaeological. It can also be defined as something historical. We did, and the committee was formed, or the commission was formed. It was never given any implementation to actually act. For the past 10 years, our neighbor, Preston County, has had farmland preservation. Now, it does require, if you will, a tax. In other words, this on the property transfers, that's where the money comes from. So you got to understand why and where your money's going to come from for that. But Preston County, for the past 10 years, has been already saving, because we're expanding into Preston County. That's where we're going, folks. If you can't buy land in Mon County, you go to Preston County, or you go to Taylor, or you go to Marion. So this is one way that we at least can approach. I'm a farmer. I've stated that I'm not for it because I'm a farmer. I'm not for it because my property bounds the interstate. And so I'm a viewscape that you see when you come into Monongalia County. Everybody that drives into the football games, if they look to the left, they see Hawkins Dairy. That's my field. And I'm willing and will put my land into preservation, which you can do voluntarily without compensation.
The first time that pasture land preservation was discussed, Asa Kennedy was on the commission and opposed it. One of the people in Monongalia County was a very strong advocate for agricultural development. There's a lot more implications to pasture land preservation than preserving green space. It's restricting use of property by the owners, because once you turn it over, now you have given up your right to do whatever you want with that property. There's also a tax that has to go in that people would be paying new taxes. One of the things that we have done, FEMA condemned some land on Dense Run, flood land. What we did is after the house was torn down, they bought the occupant a new house. They gave us the land. We gave the land to the town of Granville. It's preserved as green space. Star City, the Lynch family gave us some land, the old Star City. We remediated it, all the asbestos and contaminants. We gave that to the town of Star City, green space. So we have been very conscious of green space. We've been very conscious of our parks. We have an initiative now to develop our parks for years. We've had parks that have had a very narrow vision of the purpose and a very narrow target group of who they served in Monongalia County. We want our parks to serve all the people of Monongalia County, not just certain groups, although we don't want to exclude groups that have been served in the past.
What are developers, including WVU, paying the county in impact fees and revenues for the costs to the public during and after development, and are they sufficient? Well, are developers paying the county impact fees? We don't have impact fees. Never mind. Never mind. Okay, let's try this one. Why don't we have impact fees?
He just told you we have an attorney in the crowd.
Okay, we don't have impact fees for developers. Is that a local issue? It is not a local issue?
One of the things I can do to clarify something.
Okay.
One of the things you have to understand is that the county commission is a creation by the state of West Virginia. Unless you find in the code a very clear stipulation that they empower the county commission at the county level to carry out duties or responsibilities or programs, the county can't do it. We're prohibited. And that's not in the code for us to do.
Do you have any comments about that, Ms. Bacon's question?
Well, I would say that's one effort of looking toward collaborative leadership. Let's go to the delegates. Let's explore this with the senator. Let's talk to people to say, hey, we are suffering here by not having this. Can this not be a sponsored legislation?
Here's another question for you guys to screen, if it's appropriate. How do you plan to work with WVU to have payment in lieu of taxes negotiated? Is that another quizzical question?
Well,
Does it?
we really haven't started working with WVU, payment in lieu of taxes. Now, that's been thrown out there and it's been discussed some, and there's been some discussion that's went on about it, but no one's came to us in the county commission and formally asked for payment in lieu of taxes. One of the things, I think the legislature didn't renew the law. So we couldn't engage and agree to payment in lieu of taxes unless the legislature renews that law.
There's one other factor too, as most people probably do know, but WVU, because of its partnership, anything that WVU has is within the city limits. So the city does come first here with regard to these things, as far as I could divine it. That you would start working with the city and WVU and the county commission because because of the limitations of they're wanting to be a good citizen, and they are a good citizen, but it's just like it's just a way of life here.
One of the good things about these forums is it helps me to better understand where the responsibility lies. So I apologize for asking some questions that were a little outside your purview, but it helps us to understand maybe where we need to ask the questions. So I will blunder on ahead with another question. How do you plan to work with the DOH to fund roads in the area?
We've been working with the DOH for the last year, and Commissioner Callan can tell you about the conferences that he's had. We've had DOH officials in to have work sessions. We've exchanged information. Collaboration is nothing new to this commission. It's new to some people, but it's not new to this commission. We have attempted to work out partnerships and arrangements. We're just as concerned about the infrastructure of Monongalia County as anybody else. But you have to remember there are parameters to who has the authority here. Monongalia County is not going to run the state of West Virginia. And if anyone thinks that you're going to go to Charleston and tell them how to run Monongalia County when they want us to run like other counties, you're sadly mistaken. That's false promises. But we have been, are now, and will continue to work in collaboration with the Department of Highways to try to get some improvement in our infrastructure and our legislature as well.
I would say one thing that we would have to do is to not provoke, if you will, the DOH. In other words, I can cite one particular project, which was the mile ground, and the turnaround was done, whether you like it or not, it's there. But this was to be a completed divided road all the way across the mile ground and was to come down to the bottom of Easton Hill. They were going to straighten up Easton Hill. And all of a sudden, this comes back from the MPO that this is going to be changed now, and it's going to be a road that's going to be divided 4 ways with a turning lane in the center. But the plans, and I saw the plans had already been made by the DOH. This is sort of an antagonistic position, and it may be somewhat, no offense to the city of Morgantown, that the city of Morgantown might have taken recently with its trucking issue. What you try and do is provide a solution. I know lots of truckers, they certainly don't want to go through the city of Morgantown. I know that. Provided a good way around and a quicker way around that would cost less diesel fuel, they'll be happy to take it. So working with the DOH to try and solve some of these problems is, as the way I look at it, and not to provoke them at the same way. I don't want them to go away and think our community is not one that you don't want to work with.
This question says, you are running on the campaign of change. What specifically will you change since the county is seen as progressive and successful? I'm going to let him answer that first this time, okay?
He's the one that brought it up anyway.
What I stated was positive change. And I think that I have some leadership skill. I've been able to revive, with the assistance of a great group, the Mon County Fair. Whether you missed it or not, it's back. There are other things that I've tried to work with in this community. I've been a volunteer 25 years in 4-H. I'm still a 4-H leader. I take a week vacation to serve as a camp counselor. That's not what most people choose to do. I take the other week of my vacation to work at the fair. I think the change that I offer is one that is willing to go out into the community, as I have been for 25 years. You find me. A lot of you know me because that's where you've seen me. You've seen me at events in the evening, whether it's the Historical Society, whether it's this, whether it's that. I've chosen to be an active participant, and I think that's the type of change that I really, really want to promote, a positive change of somebody that's going to be present, that you can talk to, that you can listen to.
We have a meeting every Wednesday in the courthouse. It's open. My telephone number is in the phone book. I'm out and about in this county. I've been a businessman in this county for over 40 years. The one thing, as I said here, I can tell you it tries my patience to listen to some statements that are being made by my opponent. He talks about change. What kind of change would we get if he did with the county budget what he did to Camp Muffley? They half built a dining hall, didn't have the money to finish it, needed $1.7 million to finish it, came to the county commission. Asel Kennedy was their spokesman, said if we don't give them money, they're going to have to tear down what they built. We created a work cadre and finished that dining hall for $500,000. Now, what kind of management of a budget when you buy $37,000 worth of chairs for Camp Muffley and you don't have the money to pay for them? The county commission had to pay for those chairs. What kind of management of a budget do you have when you have $30-some thousand in the bank for Camp Muffley and the county commission has to go to the prosecuting attorney to get those funds transferred to where they belonged?
Gay marriage started today in West Virginia. Although Morgantown City has an LGBT non-discrimination ordinance, would you support a countywide one?
Would you repeat that?
Yeah. Gay marriage started today in West Virginia. Although Morgantown City has an LGBT non-discrimination ordinance, would you support a countywide one?
I would support equal rights for anything, whether it be in regards to sexual preference, in regards to marriage, couple. I think people deserve to have equal rights under the law, and that's the basis of this country when how it was formed. I think when we start discriminating for whatever reason, it opens the door to other discriminating acts.
I actually have to observe this with a little bit of humor because I have made a statement many times that when and if it ever happened that same-sex marriage was allowed in West Virginia, that I was going to go back and go to law school, because then I was going to become a divorce attorney and specialize specifically in this. And today my email just lit up with me from all those that I'm friends with in the gay and the lesbian community, stating that, have you made your entry form yet into law school? But I really do support, equal rights is equal rights for everybody, right? There's no harm in what they've done today. There's going to be people opposed to this. I understand it. But you might be opposed for the wrong reason. People are people are people, Just let everything have a good time and let everybody live happily.
I have no more questions that have been submitted. Is there anybody else has a question from the floor? Oh, you do have one. Would you like me to read it? I can do that. The one on the top? Yeah. Well, it's the whole. Oh, okay. What is your position on working on an urban county government?
My position, I think it's inevitable. The day will come. One of the difficulties that our volunteer fire departments are having is that we give an allotment of $20,000 to each department, and they've talked about a fire service fee. They talked about additional levy. We are in the process of getting interpretation from the Attorney General on how we can approach that in a legal way. It's not something that hasn't been looked at. The volunteer fire departments do need assistance, but we have duplication and triplication of services in government in our community. We have it with fire departments, we have it with law enforcement, and I'm sure you could pick out other areas where there's duplication and triplication, and the taxpayers have to foot the bill for that. Well, we can't just keep increasing taxes, and we've got to look at creative ways to be able to meet the needs of our community. And one of the things that we're doing in our community, if you haven't noticed, is a transition from quantity to quality of life. We're going to increase our population. The university's helping to do that. But we also are concerned about quality of life. All you need to do is listen to the newscast. And we don't need to be a community that stands by and has murders and every time you listen to the newscast, serious assaults or sexual assaults. Law enforcement, those primary services we need to concentrate on. But we can't do it singularly. We can't do it as the city of Morgantown. One of the things that we try to do, and I think we are doing it more so, not just the city of Morgantown's part, but the county commission's part of trying to look together and work together in terms of what kind of things how can we assist each other? How can we have partnerships? And I think that's a very legitimate question. The future is going to hold those things.
I do agree. I believe that we are going to come to a place where it has to be a consideration. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You cannot keep on wanting to make little fiefdoms, if you will, of this is what I do, and this is what you do, and this is what you do, and you're not allowed to do this. we've got to cooperate. We're all in this together. We all live in this county. And to what end we can achieve the best end for everybody here is what we're all looking for.
We want to thank both of you candidates for coming and sharing your. Okay. Can I take one more question? Okay. Yeah. We do have time after the meeting, but do you want to go ahead and do you have your question written, or do you want to come up?
I would like to invite you to one of our meetings or work session because we discussed those. We're working on projects. One project, for example, is the partnership with WVU. You know, we have the ballpark. We have involved ourselves in the interchange. That interchange will open up, according to the developer, $280 million worth of development. We're working on that. In fact, we talked to some people the other day. The developer is looking at it, and I can't. This is not for public release, but there's some things going on that you would compromise in negotiations if he released it to the news media. They don't really want to release it, but we're working on trying to develop some economic issues, employment issues, improvements in the infrastructure issues. But some of these you can't. You say you're working on them, but if you go public, the next thing you know, you're getting a phone call saying, why are you telling people that? We haven't agreed to anything. So you have to be very cautious when you start going public with what you're working on, because different people see it in different ways, and you may think, well, we're going to get this done, and they may say we're far away from getting the commitment on this.
Well, I'm gonna draw this to a close because we do have the other candidates. So we'll have a thank you very much to these two gentlemen. And we'll take a brief break now for a change of scene.